This is the building demo for my museum management game. You can pick from a whole range of items, from this bench to this lunar lander. This lets you create your very own space museum, but wait a second, this isn't the latest version of the demo. This is much better. What do you mean, what's the difference? Well, there's different sized buttons, and this whole blue area is gone. What was that blue area for? Well, it's kind of embarrassing. It's like the carpet I've swept a lot of issues under. I've had this for years. I even had it in my old games like Project Torim, but it's one I'm so happy that I finally solved. This is how I used cursors to fix a hidden flaw in my game. How's it going, everybody? I'm Lewis, also known as Skeffels, and welcome to this devlog for my museum management game. Let's begin with the first demo. If I remove the blue area, then we can have a look at what the actual problem is. Loading the demo now, I can click and drag to add walls, just like normal. But when I click a wall and immediately drag onto the grid, it's coming from where I click the button. Also, if I click a bunch of buttons and then move the camera position, we can see an object everywhere we clicked. Basically, objects are added where each button was. So the problem seems to be that when you click on UI, things happen in the world. Like I mentioned in the introduction, this has been a problem for years, even going back to my old game engine. For example, this caused a few issues in my tower defense game, Project Torim. The main issue in that game came from the fact that you click to move towers. If you buy a new tower, you click to place it down. But if an existing tower is underneath the UI, at that point it takes priority. This means the existing tower moves when you don't want it to, and new towers often get placed in invalid locations. Whilst I'm not going back to fix Project Torim, it is a great example of how this problem manifests. So now we know what the problem is, let's find out why it happens. In my game engine, levels are split into layers. Layers are a collection of objects that get updated and drawn together. This means with two layers, you can have a world and a UI. Layers are individual. They don't have any concept of other layers. This is so a collision box on the world layer, such as a player, doesn't interact with a UI element, such as a button. For a layer to interact with the mouse, its on-screen position is translated to a layer position. It's then added to the collision map to check for collision. This works great for each individual layer, but problems arise when these layers are overlapping. In the past, I've tried to avoid having overlapping layers, hence the blue area in the first demo. However, I cannot carry on doing this. It's really limiting what I can make. So, how can we fix this? First, let's define the behavior that I want. If I click on an object in a layer, I want an interaction with that object. If there are many layers with objects, then I only want to interact with the object on the highest layer. To achieve this, layers don't need to change, but there should be some code to manage these interactions. This is where I'll introduce the idea of a cursor. Now, when we think of cursors, we often think of on-screen pointers that we control with a mouse. Whilst true, and is something I want to support, they can be more. For example, you could use a joystick on a controller or a set of keys to control it. This is where the input system that I wrote last year comes in handy. The cursor has a position interface that a mouse, joystick, or keyboard can control. Whilst I'm not making the most of it now, this approach gives the engine way more options down the line. In terms of the game engine, the cursor sits inside the game level, the same as the layers. Similar to the original code, it will translate its on-screen position into a layer position, which is used for collision. The key difference here is if an interaction happens within a layer, the cursor will disable itself. When it's disabled, it will no longer check collision. This will stop events from happening in other layers. This results in the cursor going through the layers until an event is fired. Once an event happens, the cursor is disabled, stopping objects in other layers from interacting with the cursor. Meaning if you click a button in the UI, the world layer will not react. This all came together in the second building demo, and it's the reason why the blue area is gone. I know it doesn't look like much, but this fixed so many issues and gives me confidence to deliver better UI in the future. Speaking of which, keep an eye out and subscribe to get notified when I release new videos, because I'm excited to announce I'll be releasing the next demo alongside the 3rd anniversary devlog. I hope you've enjoyed watching this devlog for my museum management game. Leave the video a like to let me know you did. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.